Hi, I'm Tammy Pominville, and I want to tell my story of Riley and why I'm so strong on donating organs and donor awareness, organ awareness. Um, she was born with spina bifida, which is when the spine is on the outside of the spinal cord's on the outside. Did surgery, and she overcame so many obstacles. She was born, and the doctor said that she would never walk. Before we even left the hospital, we had to learn how to catheterize her, and that's what threw me into the medical field. She went into surgery 24 hours after, or within the first 24 hours of being born, to close everything up and to put a shunt in for the hydrocephalus. And but she always smiled. She had the biggest smile of any kid you've ever met. Always had her arms open for a hug. Just, yeah. So despite 4 surgeries and many, many hospitalizations for UTIs and everything else, she just was beating everybody's odds and proving all the doctors wrong, which pleased me. But she'd never really taken a step. And July 13th, 2000, we were baking, Justine, her older sister, and I were baking a cake, chocolate cake, family recipe for my mom and dad's birthday. They were down in Dallas for their birthday, and so we had to celebrate when they got back. So we had Britney Spears blaring on the radio, dancing in the kitchen, cracking eggs, making the cake. And she always wanted to be in with everything, and put her in her walker so that she could be upright and with us as part of it, and eating her Cheerios. And I heard this crash, boom, bang. I was like, what was that? And I looked over, and she wasn't there. I thought, well, she'd made her way over into the laundry room and banged into the washer or the dryer, because she was bouncing. She didn't walk, but she was bouncing. And I ran over into the laundry room, and as I passed by the stairway, I saw out of the corner of my eye she was at the bottom of the stairs. And from that, it just called 911. Well, carried her to the top of the stairs. I know now you're not supposed to do that, but didn't know better then. And I'd taken CPR in college, but never performed it. Didn't know what to do, but she wasn't breathing, and called 911. We lived in Julesburg, so they didn't have like the typical 911 system where you call, the operator tells you how to perform CPR, and then the ambulance comes. It's all, yeah. They didn't have that at the time. So I called, told them where we were at, and they called. She's known as the sunflower baby because on our farm, which was a mile from where we were at, my dad has a big sunflower that he welded, and it's our family tree. And so when I said, the dispatcher says, "Are you by the sunflower?" And I said, "Yes, we're a mile south of there." Of course, I'm screaming and yelling at her and freaking out because my daughter's not breathing, and I just want to know how to do CPR. And she tells me, "Well, I can't tell you how to perform CPR, so I need you to hang up the phone, and I'm going to have the paramedic call you." It was the longest, probably not even, I don't even think it was 2 minutes. It was probably less than a minute, honestly, but it felt like eternity, waiting for him to call me. And he called me and led me through CPR. Of course, it started coming back at that point, but she was still at this point breathing, but then the cops showed up and they started CPR. One off-duty officer as well as an officer showed up, and then the ambulance shows up, and next thing I know, we're at the hospital in Julesburg, and then we're flying to Children's Hospital in Denver. Like I said, that was the 13th of July, 2000. And then they continued to do tests, and July 17th, they came to us and said that there was no brain activity due to the closed head injury. And they pulled us into a room and talked to us about donating her organs. And at the time, I was completely against. I wasn't even a donor at the time, and I couldn't understand why anybody would want to be. And I was appalled that they were asking me to donate my daughter's organs. I was like, how dare you? I was pissed. I was upset. My husband at the time, he was all for it. He completely supported it. So I actually left the room. I walked down to a waiting room, family waiting room, and cried. Just didn't know what to do. And a lady came in, saw me crying, and tried to offer some comfort. And she was telling me her story. Her son was there. They were here from Texas on vacation. They were in Boulder hiking, and her son got struck by lightning, and he was in a coma. So we're sharing stories, and I was telling her all of this, and she says, well, my dad was an organ recipient, a heart recipient. And she's like, if you'd like to stick around, you could meet him. They're on their way here. And I was kind of mixed about it, but I didn't want to hurt her feelings, and so I stayed. And they walked in, and I felt like I knew this guy. I felt like he had already been a part of my life, and I couldn't explain it. It was pretty cool. So after meeting him, I left them alone, and so they could have their family time, and went and found another waiting room. And I walked into the waiting room, and there's a card sitting on the table with the Lord's Prayer. And I don't know, it just meeting him, having the Lord's Prayer, it was something just, I went back and I said, yes, let's donate. This is her gift. This is what she's supposed to do. And so she was able to donate her liver to a 42-year-old man, and her kidneys to a 9-month-old little baby boy. And her heart went to science because it wasn't strong enough to actually donate. So it went to science, and then her heart valves were, they can keep those for forever frozen and then until they use them, so they could help people too. So since then, I've really struggled with knowing. Obviously went through many struggles. Went into the medical profession and felt like that was my calling that I had missed, and she took me towards. And I was angry, and walkers. I wanted to get a pile of walkers, a mountain of walkers and burn them or shoot them up or do something, destructive, and let everybody know, no, don't buy a walker. But that didn't feel right. So then I need to support spina bifida, and I do, and I always will research to how to, prevent it or fix it, and they fix it in utero now, but that didn't feel quite right either. And then the doctor I recently worked for, I met a gal, and she works for Donor Alliance, and she spoke to me probably more than she even is aware, and just touched my heart and told me about the Donor Dash. And I knew I always wanted to do it, but I just kind of blew it off and was meh, yeah. And then this year in March, it showed up on my Facebook, and it was on July 17th. Well, 16 years ago on July 17th, she passed. And so I knew that once again, God was speaking to me somehow and saying, you got to do this for Riley. So we're doing the Donor Dash, and I'm super excited to have a team of, we've got 17 people signed up. I know a couple people can't come out, and that's okay. We've got some bracelets that I've been giving people, and some pins, and I've hung up some flyers and hoping to get some awareness. And if it doesn't do anything else, I just hope people register to become an organ donor. And I think that's the legacy that Riley would have wanted. She would have been 17 now. Wow. Wow. So I just want to raise awareness and through her story. Someday I hope to meet the recipients. I've written letters, and I understand they go through their own grief, and that's okay. So I'm doing this for Riley. I'm doing this for her. One thing that also spoke to me that I want to share is the picture of her. There was a picture of her. We went to Sears to have pictures taken. Her 6-month pictures, and Justine, she would have been 4 at the time, and stuff. And a picture of her looking up. She's dressed as an angel, and you can see the picture in the camera after the photographer took it. And I kept saying, no, let's retake it. And then when she was looking up like this, I was like, oh, but she's not looking at the camera. I want her to look at the camera. And my husband said, no, it's kind of cool because she's looking up like she's an angel looking up to heaven. I was like, oh, okay. We'll leave it. That's cool. That's cool. So that's the picture we have. And I took one of my gymnasts. I was a gymnastics coach, and took one of my gymnasts to camp the August after Riley passed. And I dropped her off at camp that morning, and I was like, something just told me. I just had this gut feeling. I went back to Sears. I asked the lady, I said, can you tell me a date that a photo was taken? She's like, well, you want reprints or what, and I said, no, I actually have all the photos I want. I just want to know a date. And she said, she goes, sure, thinking I'm losing my mind. And she types in Shelburne. And she said, well, yeah. She says they were taken on July 17th. I started bawling. I fell to the floor. That poor gal didn't know what to do with me. But she comes around and she comforts me, and we cried together when I told her the story. And I have the receipt. And those pictures were taken a year to the date that she died. And so that's my proof of our Lord. And I'll never stop believing it. And that's not coincidence, I don't believe. But just hope everybody signs up to be an organ donor so you can help other people. We're supposed to help each other.